Welcome to the podcast for online fitness coaches. We're Benji Tucker and Ethan Gonzalez, and together we scaled each of our fitness businesses from 0 to 80K in just 4 months. On this podcast, you'll hear how to get more online fitness clients, make more profit from each of them, how to keep them longer, and the many failures and lessons we have learned on our path to a combined 160K per month. Today, we will be talking about exactly how we increased our call show rates to 90+% in pre-frame prospects, so we effectively turned ourselves into cash machines and doubled our business. This is part one of part two, as we will be going point by point through our 16-point checklist that we give to all of our clients inside our launch program. So this is very special that we're giving this away. If you want the checklist, guys, just DM us a list on Instagram at PT Launchpad. So it's at PT and then Launchpad spelled out, and we'll send it right over to you guys. So, Ethan, let's go through it. Show rate, right? It's pretty important. It's a lot of people don't know why it's important, though.
Yeah, so I think this is probably one of the most neglected things in terms of like making more money in your business. Basically, if you had to think about it, like I'll give this example later, tell a little bit more about my story, but if you had to think about it, what do you feel like is easier? If you're already great at sales and you're closing at 50% right now, do you feel like it's easier for you to get 20% more to your close rate? So now you're closing at 70%, or do you feel like it's easier to get 20% more people to show up to the call? Probably get more people to show up to the call. So if your show rate is at 50%, getting that to 70% is a 20% boost to all the calls that you take. So it's one of the most impactful things that you can actually do to make more revenue in your business.
Exactly. And I mean, that follows the theory of constraints, right? It's like find the lowest hanging fruit that will have the biggest impact on your business, because your business can only grow to the extent of which your constraint is, right? Your business is as weak as the weakest link in the chain. So if that's at 40%, 50%, you increase that by 20, 30% overnight. Like if you're already closing at 50%, it means if you get 5 more calls per month, you will sign at least 2 to 3 more clients and make an extra 10 to 15K. That's huge difference. That's astronomical.
Yeah. It was probably one of the biggest things that I fixed early on. Like very, very early on, like you guys have heard a little bit about my story, like having the wrong avatar, people with no money, people overall who just weren't the right fit for the program. During that time, I had a 30% show up rate to all my calls, maybe even less, maybe even 25, right? So I had a 25% show up rate and I was still making 10K a month. And so when I switched to the new avatar, of course, better people, but I implemented some of the things that we're going to talk about today in this 16-point checklist. And that got my show up rate from like 25, 30% to 80, 90%. And so as a result, the business went from 10K to 50K pretty much overnight. No change.
Just by increasing show rate.
Yeah, just by increasing show rate.
And a lot of people, like everyone has different constraints, but show rate is typically a big one, and it's not one that should ever be the constraint. Like we have, and here's what I mean by that. If you can easily do the things we give you on this checklist, regardless of who you are and how skilled you are, and go in and increase your show rate just by doing the things in this checklist. What you can't do is on your first take, make an ad where the cost per lead is as good as Ethan and I might be able to make it be, because that requires skill. You might not be able to close at 50, 60, 70% like Ethan might in a month, because that required so much investing into that particular skill and so much experience. But with show rate, anyone could do this if they just work a little bit harder than the next person and do what we tell them to do. It's not that complicated. It's just that people don't do it, they don't know it, or they're lazy. And that should not, if those are three bad reasons to not scale your business.
Yeah. I'd say laziness is number one. Honestly, people just don't want to put the work in and go through the entire checklist and follow it, that they're missing out on money thinking that they're saving time. Being like, I won't follow up the lead. I won't make sure that he watches the VSL. And like, as a result of not doing those things, the person doesn't close, or they don't even show up to the call to be closed. So it's
Absolutely.
so much missed revenue just on the
Yeah, we were just on a group call in the launch program, and someone was showing their thank you page, which we'll get into in a second, actually, in this video, and all the strategies he was using. And we had talked to it about him with it to implement these things. And someone in the group goes, "Wow, it's so cool to see how much effort you put into your business, and like I hope to be like that." And absolutely. But if everyone was like that, then your show rate would be increased, and you, even if you sucked at other things, like you wouldn't complain about not making money because you wouldn't have a constraint that's so large that's preventing you from literally making 2K versus 10. And like that's what we're trying to solve for here is like, can we, because is that life-changing money if you're making 2 and going to 10? Yes. Is it life-changing money if you're making 10 and going to 25? Yes. So this constraint alone being fixed is going to change your life.
Yes, 100%. And honestly, too, stuff that people again don't talk about is people always talk about cost per call, but again, it's about cost per call taken. So people always focus on the cost per.
Yeah.
If your cost per call is, hey, it's $200 per cost per call, but your cost per call shown is 600, that's a big problem. You got a big issue there. That's basically
Yeah, because cost per call show is what actually matters. It's the metric that you really have to reverse engineer for. Is it good or is it bad? Not cost per call booked. And so if your cost per call show is higher, how do you fix that? Well, you have to go down the chain and say, oh, I have to increase show rate. Well, how do I do that? Well, that's what we're here to deliver for you guys today. So let's get into this checklist. In this video, I believe we're going through number 1 all the way to number 7 before we get into the automations. So with that, we're first going to talk about booking the call, and this leads us to number 1 and probably the biggest or second biggest determinant of if someone actually shows up to the call, and that's your call availability. So the more total slots that you have open for someone to choose from, the higher chance that the lead will both book in and show up to the call. Why? Because they're actually booking in for a time that they're able to, instead of saying, oh, 6 p.m. would have been a better time, but he doesn't have that available, so I'm going to book in for 4 p.m. Hopefully I make it, but I'm getting out of work, right? Like, that's a huge difference right there. So Ethan, if you want to talk maybe like a little bit about that and just like your experience implementing that or seeing that play out with you or your clients.
Yeah. And I think for me, especially, it was one of those things where, hey, in the beginning, just open your calendar all the way up. Like, don't have an ego about it. Don't be like, oh, what if they see my calendar's always open, whatever. Like, it matters more that they book the time that works than they don't. And you'll honestly find, like, the more calls you take, this is kind of a little bit more advanced, but the more calls you take, you'll actually find the call slots that people are more likely to close at. It's a very interesting statistic, but I found it myself. More people are looking to close at like 12 p.m., like lunchtime basically, versus people in the evening right before work or right after work ends. Because people after work, they're like, I don't really want to go to the call. I'm really tired. I don't really feel like it. Versus people who are really high intent, they book during their lunchtime sometimes. And they're like, I want to be at the call. I want to make sure I have 100%
Evening lunch.
Exactly. Instead of lunch, they want their full undivided attention. And so what I started to optimize for was, hey, I want people to book at this time or this time. When I offered call slots, I offered times that were more likely to close.
Yeah, absolutely. For all the people watching the video version, I can't fucking figure out how to get headphones to work like the wireless ones. I never do that. So this is a work in progress here, guys. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think it just shows like the differences in intent, and ultimately, if you have more slots open, like put your ego to the side and make sure you do that. Don't worry. Don't use the GHL button. You know, everyone goes into GHL for the first time and they say, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. There's a feature where it makes you look busy. They're going to think, wow, there's so much scarcity. You're not good enough to convey scarcity because it's not real scarcity. It's fake scarcity. And when you have fake scarcity, people read through that shit because we have a sophisticated market because everyone's being sold to on the internet now. So do not do that. That's point number 1. Point number 2, allow booking only 3 days in advance. Now, I don't think this strikes people as obvious when they're starting out or even have a little bit of experience. But it is like I said, the first or second most important thing, because you create this sort of desire to show up for the call. People are really, really excited. If time goes on, they are less excited, right? And it's the same principle with everything in human nature. If your friend said, hey, tomorrow night, I bought tickets, we're going to the Yankees game. Like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But if it's a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, eventually as it gets closer to the game, you've had so much time to like create expectations and think about what it's going to be like that eventually the excitement wanes, and it's just the sort of thing that was going to happen, right?
Exactly.
So What have you kind of seen with your funnel and how that's played out? Because I have you done like what I've done, where it's I've had all you could book 1 2 weeks out, and then you realized, oh shit, that's not working very well. Like, have you been able to see the difference?
Yeah, definitely. And you'll see it in almost everything. Like, I think that's a great example because for a lot of people, you have this DM conversation. It's very, very powerful. And if you book them for a week out, they're like, oh, actually, I'm really busy. Can we book for 2 weeks? You book them for 2 weeks, they're never going to show up. Number one, like something's going to come up, they're going to get busy or they just won't care. Versus if you are like, hey, life is busy, we're all busy. If this is important, let's find a time now. They make that suggestion, they take that action, they book in the next couple days. They're like, this is important, right? You
Yeah.
judge someone's priority on the call based on when they book too.
That's a really good point. You know what? That's like a very it can almost be a point in the checklist, but it's a side note in this sense is that if someone gives you that objection, guys, this just goes into DM setting a little bit, but it will make them show up more. You do exactly what Ethan said. What I typically said was, "Hey man, I totally get it. We totally could pick a time later." So I let their guard down a little bit, but honestly, my professional experience working with hundreds of guys just like you, later always becomes never. And if I actually care about you and you're actually serious about this goal, I'm not prepared to let like basically see you fail and let later become never for you. So if that resonates with you, let's just pick a time across the next couple of days and get you set up because things are always going to be busy. And I would just send that via voice memo too, so that I was showing that I cared,
Yeah.
and making it not a non-automation, and it crushed. And all of a sudden, you had people that probably would have never even booked in after they had 2 weeks of thought because they'd bitch out like they have for the last couple of years of their life. And then I turned them into like prospects that had this desire to go. And just like that, right? So that alone is not only going to book you in more calls, but it's going to increase the show rates of those types of people. And I think that's a huge consideration.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like getting
Yeah.
again, it's always focused on getting them to show up. And if we allow ourselves to book them later, then again, they're less likely to show up. So it's
Yeah, and in the beginning, you might fall into the, oh, well, I'm just going to let more people through the door because I'm starting off. And like, that's true, but don't take that quote out of context, because if you're letting people show up 2 weeks later, you could just work hard in a different way to get them to still show up, but sooner, so that they have a higher intent to actually buy. So I think that there's a sort of beginner's mistake there, even intermediates, right? People at 5 to 20K where they think, oh, this is okay if I let this guy do this because, oh, maybe he's being genuine. Like he is busy and like he only can do it 2 weeks later. I'll give you guys an example. It was Easter Day and I was booking calls the day before Easter and Easter Day at my family's house, which I'm not recommending you guys work on Easter, but that's what I said. And everyone was like, sorry guys, like I'm hanging out with my family for the week or the next couple of days. They were visiting. I don't think I could do it. Can we do it next week? And I would meet that objection like in various ways, but one of the ways kind of just like what Ethan and I went over, and that alone got me closes, right? Just there. Like it went from not being booked, from someone saying, hey, see you never, dude, to let me book you in for a call and close you.
Yeah.
So, and that was Easter. That wasn't, hey, I'm busy at work. It was, I'm with my family. I'm in a different state. There's a big holiday going on and we still got them in. So there's no excuse at any other time for someone not to show up, especially when there's 120, 130 waking hours in the week. They have 45 minutes to show up for a call. If they're really serious and they actually care about doing this thing, that's going to cost them lots of money, by the way, then they're going to find 45 minutes. And another way I would actually meet this objection too, depending on how the conversation was going, is I'd say, honestly, man, like I would almost like disqualify them to get them back. I'd say, I'm not sure if this is going to work for you because, if it's only 45-minute call and if you don't have just 45 minutes to work out during the day, once a week, then it's not really going to work for you anyways. Would you not have 45 minutes to do that? Because if you do, like, we could definitely book in over the next 3 days. And then people will be like, oh, okay. Right? Because they'd feel like an idiot if they said otherwise, because no one could justify not having 45 minutes in their entire week.
100%. You have to make it illogical that they can't do it. And if they still don't do it, then you don't want them as a client anyways, because they're just going to be a loser.
And then they just suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the chances they buy are so low.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now here's another one, guys. Ethan and I were, when we were initially creating this checklist, a huge point that came up, and I was like, "Oh man, like we've known this, but we never put this into the checklist." Was how you actually are in the like how you conduct the DM process. So a lot of people, they get people to book in at all costs, but they don't properly qualify them in the DMs. They don't properly paint the gap between where the prospect is and where they're trying to go. And as a result, there's less pent up emotion and there's less of a burning desire and a feeling of need to show up to the call. Instead, it's just something that the prospect chose to do and kind of wants to do, but they don't need to do it. So if you want to speak on that, Ethan, like I think that was a really good point you brought up when we were talking before.
Yeah. And I think it's the biggest thing is if somebody thinks of it as a want rather than a need, they'll treat it as such. There's a lot of things they want. They've wanted to lose weight for 10 years. They haven't done it because they didn't need to. There was nothing strong enough to make it happen. So you need to paint that gap in the DMs and make it be like, you need this now, basically. Get them to realize that, of course. Have them understand why they need to do it now. All these different questions that you ask through the DM process, like get them to come to that realization and make sure that the call is pitched as a valuable way to help them, right?
Yeah.
If they don't see any value in the call, they're not going to get on the call. So you got to show them how you're going to help them on the call. They see that vision. They are excited for the call. They watch through the things and then they show up. And, you know, as we're going to talk about, they're pre-framed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And think about it. They haven't had enough pain yet to do something about it at all. So past behavior, guys, like you should write this down if you're listening to this because it's great for marketing, but past behavior is indicative of future behavior. So if you're not doing anything to belief shift them about what their future behavior should be, then their future self is not going to change and they're not going to take the step forwards to actually invest with you. So you need to get them to shift their beliefs by painting that gap, by showing them the pain that they actually experience every day so they could sit in it, they could sulk in it, that you could turn that, you could stick a dagger in their stomach and turn it just like how they did the Batman at the end of the third movie in the series and really, you know, dig into that wound. So, and like how Ethan said, if you properly paint the gap in the DM conversation and then you are congruent with that tonality and sort of shifting their beliefs there and challenging them and being strict in how you challenge them, then when you do that on a sales call, you're going to be congruent with the DM process. They're going to recognize sort of, they're not going to be off put by that because that's what got them to the call in the first place. So I think that that's huge, is just being congruent through your sales process. And this is one of the ways in which you would do it.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Anything else to say about that? Or are we kind of good with that? We can go into the next point.
Mainly good, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So questionnaires, that's like a big one because there's a big debate about that. That's point number 4 is how to conduct your questionnaire when you send the booking link. And a lot of people think you either, there's 2 schools of thought, right? It's frictionless, which would be name, email, maybe phone number. And then there's lots of friction where it's, how long have you had this goal for? What's your main goal? What have you tried? All these things. Yeah, what's your credit score? And I'm not going to say that either of them are actually right or wrong. Both of them can be right in the right circumstances. Either of them could be wrong in the right circumstances, right, or wrong circumstances. In this case, guys, if you've listened to our podcast, if you haven't, you are setting these calls in the DMs. And if you're properly qualifying in the DMs and going through a, you know, half decent DM script, well, you are asking the same questions that you would want to ask in a questionnaire anyways, that's properly done. So if you're already doing that, why would you ask the same questions again? That's going to cause unnecessary friction. Friction is good. Unnecessary friction is bad. So what we want to do, because we already have gotten all those traditionally questionnaire questions answered, is we're going to ask for name, email, and phone number. We don't need anything else. They already went through the friction that is required, and now we want it to be as frictionless as possible to get them right over that last hump. That's it, right? Think of it as this sort of long timeline from the moment they first heard about you to booking a call as the completion of the process before actually trying to pitch them. This is the last hump. You've already created so much friction to get them there that we now want it to be as easy as possible.
Exactly. And this is another point that kind of ties into show up rate, because you also got to think about it. Like, if you're sending, let's say you're sending out 3 calendar links and only one person books because you have a really friction, filled questionnaire where it asks them what's their credit score, how much are they up to best, are you going to show up to the call, yes or no, like all these are questions. Maybe only one person books, and now your cost per call just tripled. Right?
Exactly.
So if you send out 3 links and only one books, then your cost per call is 3 times as much as it could be. Versus if, let's say you send out 3 links, 2 people book, or all 3 people book, now your cost per call is way less. It's a third of the price.
Exactly.
So important to make sure that you get people to convert on the steps you need them to convert. Like, question wise, make sure that your DM script, you don't have any questions in general that are like holding people up. Like, if everyone's not responding to a question, obviously that's a problem. But in the calendar booking, make sure it's as simple as possible when you don't need to optimize as much for quality, right? If you have thousands of calls booked today, you can add some things in there. But for almost everyone, even myself, I just have it as simple as possible.
Yeah, and unless, exactly like you said, unless you're booking 100 calls per week, the more reps you get on sales calls, the better, because it's just going to make you better at sales, make you understand your client avatar more, make more iterations of your offer. It's really important. And by the way, like Ethan said, guys, don't ask people, will you show up to the call? You have to give them, and we'll get into this, you have to give them a reason to show up to the call. Don't ask them. There's a big difference there. Right? Like, you're not going to ask a girl, hey, will you go on, like, after you say, like, let's go out, you're not going to say, hey, will you show up? Like, will you make sure you show up? Instantly, that's so unattractive that she's not going to show up. So you have to give her a reason to, right? Like, oh, this guy, he's got a Lamborghini. He's going to pick me up in the Lamborghini. Like, now I got to go on this date, right? So that's the moral of the story.
You also not want to say what's your credit score on a first date either.
Yeah.
You think that can mess it up after you ask them how much they have in their bank account?
Like, yeah, I mean, maybe it depends. If a girl asks me that, maybe I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is the love of my life." Like, that's all right. My girlfriend's gonna kill me just for that. No, but I think I have experience with this exact process as well, going from these different points. I had an extreme questionnaire because one mentor told me to do that, and then I had a frictionless questionnaire, and I changed that for the same reason we're advocating for right now. It's because we already created the friction in the DM process, because we're doing that. That's the right way to do DMs. And that's the funnel we're using here. So as soon as I did that, I started booking 2 to 3 times more calls off of the same ad spend. And I continued to close at the same percentage because I was properly doing DMs. Now, if you're not properly doing DMs and you have a frictionless questionnaire, well, then there's no friction at all in the entire process. And then you're going to book more calls and close less percentage of your calls because of that. So don't conflate the two, okay? You have to understand where your actual constraint is and where it's not, because a lot of people will say, no, like, I'm amazing at DMs, so it can't be that. It's the questionnaire. And no, that's not your constraint. It's actually you suck at DMs. And the the quantitative data would prove that. So, you look at your spreadsheet and you say, okay, well, if more people are booking in and I'm not closing as many deals, like, that's directly DMs. It can't be anything else.
Yes, exactly.
Let's get into number 5, because there is so much value to go through here, and we are just barely halfway through. But number 5 is just having a hardline policy of not rescheduling. Even if you allow reschedules, we're going to say this at the bottom of your questionnaire, and do not frame it as a question or something that they have to fill out, but just kind of have it in like red letters at the bottom, maybe a box around it. You could just say, hey, due to the large number of people trying to book calls, we have a strict policy of not rescheduling, apart from emergencies, so that we can help as many people as possible. Please ensure that you choose a date and time that you can definitely make. So you're not asking people, hey, can you please show up? Please show up, right? You're not doing that. You're basically incentivizing them to show up without asking that.
Yeah. And this could be in 2 spots. There's mainly 2. So Benji's talking about at the end of your questionnaire. For me, it was always like in the calendar description. So it'd be like, calendar, executive health reset call with Ethan, and then it's like, this is the description. And also
Exactly.
the time people would get that, and we'll get into it, but you'll re-harp this on the thank you page anyways, basically.
Yep, exactly. So let's go right into that because I think number 5 is pretty straightforward. There's not much evolutionary psychology of the human brain to talk about there, but number 6 is what page your calendar redirects to, which will be a properly done thank you page. So a lot of people, they usually use Calendly or GHL calendars, and they just have it redirect to the standard default page, which is like, thank you, your call is at this time, and that's it, right? That's all it is. That's not giving them a good reason to show up for the call, just saying thank you. We want to give them a really strong reason to show up to the call. We want to continue to create a burning desire. How do we do that? We create a thank you page that has a few jobs. So the first job is to get them to confirm that they are actually, to confirm their attendance, that they're going to show up, not that they're going to show up to the call, but that they put it on their calendar. That's the first job. The second job is to frame the clients, to pre-frame the prospects so that they effectively, you turn yourselves into a cash machine. You answer their hardest questions and they're like ready to buy. So let's kind of just talk about what all of those elements look like, because there's a lot on this thank you page. So the first one is a video showing people how to confirm and giving sort of pre-call instructions of what they ought to do. So it's going to say at the top of the page, thank you, your call has been booked, but it is not yet confirmed. Please watch the video below to ensure your confirmation. That video is just going to literally show people on your email that is automatically sent out how to confirm the call onto their calendar. Okay, that's just them confirming their call on their own calendar will increase show rates by like 10%. Okay, so this is huge right there. The second thing, you're going to ask people to do a few things. You're going to ask them to be in an environment that is conducive for them to focus. You're going to ask them to be, you can make a joke. Hey, if you're like picking up this call while driving in a car, we're going to cancel the call. We're not going to take this call because those people suck, guys. Side note, don't take those calls. Reschedule. The third thing you're going to say, ironically, is we do not do reschedules instead other than emergencies. You're going to reiterate that point that you said in your calendar form. Point number 4 that you're going to make in this video, this thank you video, is watch the breakout videos that we have below. We're going to explain what those mean in a second. And the 5th point is asking them to watch the client testimonials that are below the breakout videos. So this is sort of the anatomy of the page. Ethan, do you have anything to add to the anatomy of the page, or like do you think that I kind of said that in a clear enough way for our audience? Because I know it's kind of more of a high level thing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good overall. I think the one point that I want to iterate on this like video that they're watching about the confirmation is like, don't sell during this, right? So I think a lot of people make the mistake of being like, oh, show up to the call, be ready to buy, basically. Like, you're gonna love it. It's gonna be awesome. Like all this like really, really salesy language that will almost always turn people off versus people wanting to show up, because you're kind of instilling, it's kind of the assumptive close, you could call it, which I also hate. It's just like you're basically, it does nothing.
Well, everyone does it wrong too. So
yeah, but everyone does it wrong. But like that in general in your pre-call homework is stupid, because you already sold them on the call. They're already going to show up most likely. That is going to get them to not show up. It's not going to make them show up more.
exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. So let's go through sort of the various elements of the anatomy of this page. So we just talked about the thank you video that you're going to make. The elements below that is first going to be your breakout videos. So what are breakout videos exactly? They are videos that answer every single question that your prospect has. Okay, they answer every single question. So let's give an example. What's something that we've invested in recently that maybe we can give an example for of what types of questions we'd have? Well, let's just use a fitness example. So let's say that with Ethan with hormones, we were talking about this before. So Ethan sells an offer where he helps females with hormones. Don't try to copy him because you're not going to know how to do it. But But what are the questions that these women are going to have? They're going to say, "Do I have to take a lot of supplements? Are the supplements expensive? What makes you more qualified than a doctor to do this? What's your education and background?" And questions like this. So they're going to have a series of 6 to 10 questions that are going to be burning questions. And if you let them either research it their own, they might be framed on an answer that you do not like and do not want, because then they're pre-framed in the wrong way when they show up to the call. Or B, they're not going to be framed at all, and then half of the call is going to be meeting objections that you wouldn't have to meet if you preemptively striked on those objections in the sequence that happens before they show up on the call. And that is huge, guys. Like, this alone not only increases show rates by many percentage points, but it increases your close rate probably more than anything other than getting skillful at sales itself.
Yeah. And if I can touch on that, it's like, I think for my offer specifically, and it'll work for other people's offers too, it's like, if people don't understand how the process works, because the way that we teach sales and everything is like, during our pitch, we're not talking about the features, we're not talking about the different things it is. Like, we're very much so talking about how it benefits them and how it's going to work, and there's no reason that they'd fail and different things like that. So all of, kind of, for me specifically, all of my program specifics are in these videos. Like, people see, okay, what's the 3R method? How does that work? How do you do your hormone forms? How do you do your blood work? How do you do your supplementation? Like, all those questions are answered. So when they come to the call, they already know, all right, this is how it's going to work. It's going to work for me. And then the call is really just a conversation getting them enrolled. It's not even selling anymore. They're already pre-sold.
Yeah, it's a goated strategy. It really is. When we started implementing this, we saw a huge change in the way that the leads would talk to us, because you have to think, a lot of your leads, guys, are going to watch you only in 30-second bursts on Instagram, and they might watch like 5 to 6 videos, right? Whereas you might hear different people around say, talk about content units, and the more content units that someone consumes of you, the more they trust you and the more likely they are to buy. And we are in a trust recession right now, where with online coaches in general, right, and business coaches and fitness coaches and relationship coaches, people have been scammed, they've been burnt, they've been done wrong. So they're afraid in the first place. So I mean, this just makes a huge difference with establishing trust, getting someone to know you a little bit more and spend a lot more time with you, so that they're ready to get on the call. They're not afraid of you, especially because B2C is a little bit more emotional. They're ready to have a conversation with you, more ready to buy. So that's sort of how you would segment your breakout videos. We recommend probably anywhere from, I would say, for a fitness offer, 5 to 12 would be a good point, right? The more sophisticated your offer is and the level of people that you're working with, the more questions they'll probably have. For someone that's more of your average avatar gen pop, like, you're probably going to have like 5 to 7 questions at most is my presumption there. But that's breakout videos, guys. The second part, under that, so you're gonna have your breakout videos there. Let's say you have 5 breakout videos. Then you're gonna have client testimonials. Client testimonials, we want to first have your videos with your clients, and then under that, you're going to have different types of social proof. So with your client testimonials, I'm not going to go into an entire SOP of how this works, but more or less, you're just going to have videos of you going through sort of the well, I don't want to get into it too much, but basically, you're just going to have your videos of client testimonials of you speaking directly to your clients. So it's definitive proof that you've actually worked with this person. It's believable proof, and that this person actually exists, and you can show that this person had the same emotions when considering starting your program, and then they took the leap of faith, and then they got a certain result. Because when you say, hey, you shouldn't, like, when you as the marketer and the salesperson say, hey, you shouldn't be afraid of this, well, you're biased because you're trying to make money, right? But if someone who is in their shoes tells you you shouldn't be afraid, well, they're not biased because they were once afraid too. So if anyone, they're the most qualified people to tell you that.
100%. That's why it's important. Like, we have a whole SOP on, getting a great testimonial, which we got to do a video on, actually. It's a great point.
Yeah, we probably should. Well, that's what I was thinking about. I was like going to go through and I was like, wait, that could be an entire video. Why would we do that now? But yeah,
Exactly. Podcast on that. But yeah, that's a huge one. Like if you have client testimonials that are really good at painting that gap between like how they were feeling before, why they still did it, what were their fears, what were their wins, all those kind of things. It helps the people who are watching the video be like, wow, that person's just like me. They took the leap of faith. They got the result.
Yeah,
More likely that I can too.
exactly. And
Huge.
that leads into the next point, which is still related directly to actually client testimonials. Is under that, we're going to call it the never-ending ball of results. As you get client testimonials, and it could be anything, right? It could be screenshots from your client texting you saying, I dropped another pound this week. It could be that same client saying that 100 times and another 10 clients doing the same thing. Every element of little bits of social proof you have, you are going to put on your page under that so that someone could just scroll infinitely and just be basically flabbergasted by the amount of social proof that you actually have. And the important thing is to make the social proof believable. So instead of a quote by, imagine I am a business coach, but imagine I took Ethan and it said, this is the best program I was ever in. Like, this was amazing. I scaled from this to this. And then it has dash Ethan Gonzalez with his picture in it. Like, that's what's hard, guys. Like, you don't do that because no one's actually going to believe that. And it's a proven statistic that I think 75% of businesses that do that, it's not legitimate testimonials at all. And our market is sophisticated enough to read through that bullshit because they've been burnt before. They've either invested in a mentor, they've seen how bullshit it is, or they have a friend that's invested in a mentor for fitness. It doesn't work. Okay, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. Do we have one more point, right? Point 7.
Yeah, last one.
That's going to be sending a VSL and the thank you page once again in the DMs right after they book. So they book, you send the call booking link, they book in a call, they get redirected to the thank you page, and then you're going to add an extra layer to ensure that they watch all those pre-call resources by messaging them in the DMs. Hey, make sure you, to catch you up to speed, make sure that you watch these two, the videos that the 2 links that I send you. It's really important that you're able to do this, right? So you guys already know what the thank you page looks like. We talked about that, but we have a stealth VSL that we create. Ethan, do you want to talk about the effectiveness of that specifically for our own fitness offers and just a little bit of like how to structure that VSL?
Yeah. So for me, the VSL really painted the picture on like, okay, how does this work differently as opposed to what I've tried before? It's really a lot about belief shifting. It's a lot about kind of your process. It's a lot about social proof. So for example, for me, when I started out with my VSL, it's like, all right, cool. So here's who it's for. And then I talked a little bit over social proof for who it's worked for, how it's worked for them, my corporate executive avatar. And then it dives into kind of common symptoms they're experiencing. So for me, symptoms of their problem are very important, like, feeling hot flashes, slow metabolism, loss of muscle, confidence, putting yourself last, right? These are some of the objections you'll get later in the call if you don't handle them now. So it's all about pre-framing some of those things and making sure you kind of have context on them.
Yeah, and I want to connect the dots on something too there, if I might. So it's a lot of people are going to be asking, well, you have the breakout videos to preemptively strike objections. So what's the point of the VSL? And the VSL is to tie all those objections that they have together whilst also explaining the elements of your program to give them value, to demonstrate your expertise in one sort of spectacular way. Let's just call it, right? And then the breakout videos, the purpose of those are to take objections that you preemptively striked for, let's say, 20 seconds in your VSL and to draw that out for, 2 minutes to 5 minutes to give a more in-depth explanation to reframe these people's beliefs even more and shift those beliefs so that they show up to the call really sold on sort of the argument that you made as to why they should change their mind on something. And I'll give an example for that. Let's say that you're in a political debate with someone and someone says, actually, I disagree with what you're saying because according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's actually 40% of people who are bricklayers or something, whatever, right? And you might be like, oh, okay, like, cool. And then like, that's it though. Imagine that's the end of the debate. you might have heard a statistic where it's okay, maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong, but you don't do any more research on it. You still stay true to your beliefs. But if that guy came with receipts and he's like, no, I have it printed out. Here's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Here's 3 other government agencies that said this. Here's an independent agency. Here's a liberal agency that said it. Here's a conservative agency that said it. It's like you have no choice other than to accept that belief now as fact because he's preemptively met every single counterpoint that you can make. So the goal in these breakout videos is to stretch out the argument even more as to why they should believe the thing that in the past they have not.
Yes. Making sure that they actually take action on something that maybe they haven't in the past or they have and they had a bad experience. Pretty much.
Absolutely.
And
all right, I think that covers our 7 points, right?
yeah, I mean, that's basically all 7. I mean, VSL, only last point I'll make is that like you'll want to, like Benji said, give some description of what the program is, talk about it a little bit, make sure they understand the specifics, and then draw those specifics out if they have additional questions for it in those breakouts. And that's pretty much a VSL.
Yep.
Sweet. Awesome. So guys, this is the end of the 5th episode for the podcast for online fitness coaches. As a thank you, as we mentioned previously, if you want this exact 16-point show up process that we are basically using in our own fitness businesses, just go ahead and message us list on Instagram. So at PT Launchpad, spelled out, no spaces, and we'll go ahead and send that right over to you.
Have a good one, guys.